Hi, I'm Rob Vanstone, I believe, and this is the 47th edition of the Rider Rumblings video podcast. I keep track by remembering Rough Rider uniform numbers of yesteryear primarily. So number 47, Maurice Lloyd. I'm like, Kelly Trithart, I think, wore number 47.
Yeah, remember him.
And so did Mel Blunt. Some Steeler content for you,
some
Murr.
nice video of Mel Blunt laying out some guys on YouTube the last couple of weeks.
Mel Blunt was an amazing, amazing player. Speaking of amazing, Murray McCormick is heroically back with us. Murray's had what I believe to be his 19th hip replacement surgery. And,
close. He feels that way.
So 47 podcasts and nearly as many hip replacement surgeries, but he's back with us.
I'm back.
We're very pleased to.
Seems rather
nice to see you, Murr.
It seems well timed to make a comeback on Easter weekend, but I think some other guy made a bigger play coming back on Easter than I have.
That's true. Yes.
But,
it was so engrossing that I even watched golf.
Oh, I know.
So
that was a big one. That was huge. That was. I know it's over a week old. Getting up at 6:30 to set up to watch a whole morning of golf, and it was absolutely riveting entertainment. And to see Tiger win is, I've always said, Tiger's better. Golf is better when Tiger wins than Tiger plays, and it really. We confirm that again.
You know, for a long time I was kind of saying, who cares about Tiger's comeback? Big deal, whoopee. But then I saw on Twitter that he was tied for the lead, and I thought, I got to watch this. And I put the TV on and I watched for the remainder of the Masters. And I can't stand golf, but there's something about Tiger Woods that commands you to watch. I don't know what it is.
And when I was watching that, I knew you knew he was going to win, kind of. I felt
sorry for the rest of the field once he got in that group of six.
Like I felt when he got rolling that he was going to win and he was good. The other guys were going to fall back, and they did. And
the 12th hole claimed some victims, and 18th, Koepka had a chance to putt and force Tiger to par on 18, and Koepka blew a putt that he's going to make 99 times out of 100.
But Tiger,
and I thought that's what Tiger does to people.
And I remember watching him in the early rounds. I used to think I always wanted to putt like Tiger Woods. And the way he putted in the first couple of rounds, we had a lot in common. And then he fired it up and started making bombs.
Well, you've had about the same amount of surgeries.
That's true, yeah.
Has he had hips done? I don't think he's had hips done.
No, he's probably going to have them, though.
Knee.
He's a pretty big guy.
So
that's not football, but it was a good 4 weeks to watch sports, or 5 weeks from golf to curling to NCAA March Madness to playoff hockey now, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk. Tonight's a big night for sports, isn't it? Raptors game.
The Nuggets game. Nuggets in San Antonio. Game 5.
I think there's a lot of people watching that one.
Jamal Murray.
Okay.
Kitchener, Ontario.
I couldn't even name anybody on the Nuggets. Anyway, 2 hockey games.
The Joker.
2 game 7. 2 game 7s in the NHL, and then they're going to be a couple. And the NHL I know this is not football, but the NHL did it to me again. I was kind of saying I'm not going to get into the first round because it's such a long series that you can't think, I'm not going to do this.
Except for Tampa Bay.
And then boom, then Tampa Bay loses out, Calgary loses out, and every series and every game becomes more intense and more important. And it's just amazing entertainment. And I know you've been slamming the NHL for some of it.
It's compelling, but the game's not played very well.
No, the games isn't played well, but some of the beauty, they've shown some goals today that have been scored. Like last night, that goal by, I can't remember, the Boston Bruins guy who dove to just put the puck in the net. Was it? I can't. Sorry, I've watched so much sports, but it's just been compelling entertainment, but not very entertaining. And I remember last night, my eyes almost bugged out. I forgot how tall Ben Bishop is as a goalie, 6'7". Like he stands up, the net only comes up to the top of his shoulder blades. So
remember when Ken Dryden used to be the tall goalie and he was 6'4", and you'd have little 5'8" goalies named Gump. Yeah. Now you don't have them anymore. They're gone.
6'2", yeah.
If you're 6'2", you're a short goalie.
Yeah.
You look at the amazing little goalies. Like, for example, I was watching on Sportsnet the other night. They had a 30-year tribute to the Calgary Flames winning the Stanley Cup, and they showed Mike Vernon.
Oh,
Mike Vernon was 5'9". Mike Vernon wouldn't even get a shot now.
I know, that's crazy.
You rewind further. Ed Stanowski was 5'9".
He looks taller now, though.
Some of us shrink.
Yeah, and
over time.
We go to the Raptors, and I haven't watched any Raptors till the playoffs because I'm not a basketball fan. But Kawhi Leonard is good.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, kind of making a big sort of announcement. I'm Captain Obviously, but he is really good. Like, he's the difference maker on that team. Like, now you can watch the Raptors and you think they can win a championship before they might win one. But I think they're in the running with Kawhi Leonard playing the way he is. He's just amazing.
Well, you look at it, and DeMar DeRozan, he's had his moments in the Denver series, but he's also, his number one moment was throwing the ball in the direction of an official, getting fined $25,000. You look at the perennial playoff failures of DeMar DeRozan in Toronto, and now you look at what Kawhi Leonard is doing to take over, and it's that, at least to date, validates that trade.
Yeah, hugely. And he turns spectacular plays into better plays. Like you block at one end, runs down, gets the dunk, plays all sorts of defense and offense, makes the 3-pointers like they're easy. Just an amazing player. And I say I'm late to this party, but it's making me watch NBA basketball because I want to see what he does on the court.
I hate to break it to you, Murr, but we had the party and you weren't invited. Little J.R. Foley there from Stampede Wrestling.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. Football.
Football. Yeah, it was.
The preamble tells you how dry it's been football-wise lately.
Yeah, it really has been. And I know I kind of hate it, but talks about CBA really don't get me excited. I realize it's part of the game right now. It's part of the off-season focus, but we kind of know it's going to end.
Talks don't get the CFL excited either.
I kind of, you look at what the CFL is doing, and the CFL, I'm talking about the owners and Randy Ambrosie, complete blackout on their side. And maybe that's right. The Players Association realize now they can make noise by putting their story out. So all we're getting is their side. And I kind of wonder if we're only getting this sort of blown out of proportion, everything by the players. And if maybe there's, in the middle of the road, there's some sound decisions being made in the background. We don't know. We just know what's happening with the players.
They're always so happy to talk when they're doing the 2.0 and the Randy's road trip. But then when people have serious, legitimate questions that aren't just some of the fluff that emanates from the 2.0, from the road trips, there's silence. They're so selective in when they're being really. This is a league that talks about being accessible and transparent, and then something like this happens, and you can't even answer a fundamental question like, "Why did you postpone negotiations?" Yeah. You don't even have to ask about the mechanics of the negotiations. The Players Association isn't. They've talked in generalities, but that's the extent to which they've commented on what they're looking for. And nobody's really asking the CFL for a daily temperature check on the negotiations, but at least when there's information out there that doesn't make you look good as a league, at least try to counter it. At least put out an explanation. At least send a statement, issue a statement, or do something to counter it to get your side out there. If your brand is taking a bit of a beating here, I think it's incumbent upon the people at the highest level to try and defend the brand. And it wouldn't be that hard to do, especially in a 9-team league where you keep talking about how accessible people are. Well, make them accessible.
What do you want them to say, though, Rob? What would you like the CFL to say if you had an opportunity?
Where's the lack of urgency? Why the lack of urgency in negotiations? Why did you postpone those bargaining sessions? What's the reasoning behind this? And what's going on with Montreal? Does that factor into that?
The Montreal. I kind of think, and it's not big because I don't know any more than anybody else.
Where did this ridiculous territorial draft come from?
Oh. I read that and actually thought I was a little high. I shouldn't say that. I was still recovering from painkillers. And I read that and went...
Legalized painkillers.
Yeah, legalized painkillers. They're all legalized now, aren't they, kind of? And I read that and went, what? 2 teams? Like, the territorial exemption, when I was growing up, for a lot of us, football was a dream. But for a guy growing up in Subway, my only dream of getting to the CFL was being a territorial exemption. And I'm not saying I had any abilities, but that was an option back then. A good friend of mine, Kari Ilarenko, as we've mentioned,
who played for Donald Trump in the United States Football League,
was a territorial exemption back then, I think. So that was a dream for guys to get to the CFL. And it was kind of a cool dream because we could all say, we're not going to get drafted because we don't do that kind of stuff, but maybe a territorial exemption. And then they come up with 2 teams who haven't earned their territorial exemptions in my mind.
They've done it by being lousy.
Yes.
They have the highest waiver priority, so Toronto and Montreal get the territorial exemption.
And
why 2? Why just have a territorial round?
Yeah.
Say, okay, we
draft a territorial round, I guess.
Well, you don't have any automatic rights to a player, but suppose that after the 2 rounds of the regular draft, you give everybody a territorial pick, and okay, maybe...
Was anybody clamoring for territorial picks, though?
Well, they made it sound in the media release like there was this groundswell of support, and I heard so many things coming out of these road trip sessions, and there really doesn't seem to be a demand or an insatiable appetite for this thing. And they kind of put the release out on a busy day toward the end of the afternoon when nobody would see it.
Yep. Pretty smooth move.
Why bother? I don't get that one at all. But nobody's explaining why they're doing it, of course.
What do you think Randy Ambrosie's reputation is going to come out of this? There's going to be a contract signed.
They'll be fine because the league will win.
Yeah.
It's the league always wins.
Isn't Randy, he's just the pinnacle of the Board of Governors. He does what the Board of Governors do. And I somehow think, in a little bit of defense of Randy, he does what the Board of Governors tells him to do. He provides direction. But he's really just the Board of Governors' voice and that stuff. So putting all the reasons why things are going, because there's a negotiations committee. The negotiations committee obviously decided to put the hold on the negotiations. It wasn't Randy's idea. I would think it'd be the guys on the committee decided we're going to wait, and we don't know why. So all the blame isn't necessarily going on. It's kind of blaming, blaming the head official for every call. It's his job,
but he's paid very well to explain these things.
Yes, and he should be.
And to be available and to be accountable.
I just don't think
And he generally is. He's generally very good, but they've picked this time to completely impose or activate the cone of silence. So what's strange?
If we could say gut feeling if we have those, but I think camps are going to open on time. I just sense that they're going to something's going to work out, and we're going to get camps will open on May 19th.
I think the players are handling it smartly. Yeah. I mean, suddenly you've got Bo Levi Mitchell and Mike Riley saying they're not going to report to camp, and there's a little bit of brinksmanship here. Yeah. So if there is that threat, maybe that compels the league to be a little more proactive in terms of doing something.
Yeah.
I could see it if they don't get an agreement by May 19th. I could see this carrying on at least until the first preseason game. Yeah. Suddenly, if an actual game is jeopardized, one from which the players really, especially the rank and file of the union, don't stand to benefit a great deal, I could see that being a catalyst for an agreement. What's in it for a veteran CFLPA member to actually play in the first preseason game? You might play a quarter.
Even training camp, they don't get paid for.
They don't get paid. So, but I think there's more for the teams to lose once the actual games are scheduled, or even scrimmages, than there are as opposed to players. Once you get to the regular season, then both sides are in a situation where there's some jeopardy.
Well, the players need money.
There's paychecks and there's gates.
Yep, and the bottom line, and both sides need them. Like the Riders haven't had a gate since November 5th. I think that one home game. Sorry,
November 11th. Sorry,
and the players haven't had a check since November 11th. So then, as I said before, the players come up here to live. They got usually two family back home. They got two houses. They got to somehow support this dream of playing football. And right now, they're not supporting themselves. No bonuses. No, they're not going to get these practice and play. They're sign and play things that I see when they're showing up to camp. So the players are going to cave because they need money. I've said this before, and I know I'm not saying I agree with not paying off-season bonuses, but it's a great strategical move by the CFL, and starving them out is what they're trying to do. And I think that's,
people say the players need paychecks so that they might cave. One of the things that I wonder is, a lot of the players are making not great money,
right?
So, on one hand, you could say, well, they really need to get this paycheck because they haven't been paid for a while. Conversely, it's because it's not amazing money. Couldn't they get a job doing something else that would pay them comparably?
But then you got to leave. You got to say, okay, thank you for this nice job, and then I got to leave in May, and I'm going to be back in November. That's kind of they had to get a real job. Like some of the Canadian guys have done, like Chris Getzlaff back in the day, Mike McCullough. I know they would race out of there after practice. Chris Best would race out of there after practice to get to their real jobs. Not their real jobs. But it's pretty hard to say to an employee, I want to do this. I want to be, say, a substitute or teacher, but I got to leave in May and I won't be back till November. So that's kind of the reality of getting real jobs. I'm not saying that's why a lot of them are personal trainers or mortgage people or things that allow them to work their own hours to do their own thing, that they can maybe juggle things around. So I just imagine that the players are presenting a unified front, and that's great because I don't think there was as much a unified front in 2014.
They always say there is. We'll see how unified they are come mid to late May.
So again, I kind of think, and it all comes down to money. So what do you think the figure is going to be to get money? Is it going to be the $70,000 to pay first-year players? I think the CFL can actually, with AAIF or what else?
I hope they really increase the minimum salary. I'm not optimistic that they will, because generally it's the younger players don't benefit in labor negotiations. Mm-hmm. It's usually the people who are at the top of the hierarchy union-wise have been around for a while, and they're going to look after their own. But I think the minimum salary should go up to at least 60.
Yeah.
60, 65. if you increase the cap but you don't increase the minimum salary, you know what's going to happen? They'll just give the extra money to the quarterback. So
But
I think they got to take care of the
$55,000
entry-level
a year
salary.
isn't bad for a first-year university student coming out of university. That's not a bad salary living, but that's Canadian kids. Americans, I think you find you change it comes down to $40,000 US, and it's a whole other different world. But
look at what you're asking them to do.
Oh, I know.
A lot of people, most people coming out of university aren't beginning a job where they're going to absorb blows to the head immediately.
And they have to do so much on their own. They have to
the
train
rigors of the job.
Then they have to train on their own. They have to eat on their own. They have to do all these things.
And you're putting your post-university, your vocation, whatever that may be, on hold as long as you're playing professional football.
And for likely 3 years. That's the figure that's thrown around now all the time. It's just a 3-year career, which seems short. I know the guys seem to be around longer than that. But.
Well, on average, that's what it works. 3 or 4 years is what it works out to. So, the obvious, if this league can afford to pay quarterbacks $700,000, they can afford to pay the 44th player on the roster more than $54,000.
Because I don't think
there has to be a bit of some elasticity there.
Because I think the other issues, is it worth walking out over having better player security, better player health plan?
If you ask Jonathan Hefney,
it is worth it. Yes, I know that.
But
how much support will you get from the public when you say we're walking out because we want to make sure we have health coverage? When I blow out my knee on the September of the season and the season ends, and next September I have my 3rd surgery and we're still not covered. Do you think they're going to support the fans? Are going to support that?
I think that this is a much easier players' union to support when it comes to the constituency of the fans than it would be, say, NHL, NFL, Major League Baseball. You look at them, and I remember the NHL, one of the first NHL labor disputes, and one of the players was arriving at a bargaining session in a Corvette.
Yeah,
I mean that's a really good look, and. The owners are billionaires, the players are millionaires, but the players never really engender a lot of sympathy, and they aren't sympathetic figures in those situations. Whereas the Canadian Football League, you're going to look at a lot of situations where the fan is making as much money, if not more, than the player who's either on strike or being locked out.
Yeah.
So they're really, and you can get to know the players in the CFL. It's a lot tougher with professional sports at a higher tier. So I think there's a greater likelihood that the fan base by and large would be sympathetic toward the players.
No, they've
been taken advantage of for too long.
Yeah, but I don't know how you.
And they've allowed themselves to be taken.
Oh yeah,
advantage
they have
of.
been. You've said many times it's a weak union. It has been a weak union. It looks a little more stronger now. It looks a little more organized, unified. I guess.
think Brian Ramsey's done a really good job.
Yeah, he's really done that. Kind of like. So I think it's
Jeff Keeping.
They have good people there, and
Solomon
the
Aluminium.
fact that Mike Riley and Bo Levi and these guys are stepping up to saying we're not going to show up to camp is really important. Because if they said we're going to show up to camp, then it's nothing.
Yeah, or as soon as you start getting those cracks, it's over. Look at the '87 NFL strike, and suddenly Joe Montana decides he's going to play again. Well, that's the end of the strike.
Yeah,
so hopefully this isn't a protracted issue. If indeed there is any disruption, I think the first week of training camp could be interesting.
Well, I remember in 2014. Every day was a labor story.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes you grind through training camp because you may write the greatest story ever in training camp and no one will remember it 2 days later because it could be the greatest feature on this guy, but it's not there.
Okay, we're not going to send you then.
Yeah,
That's all we're getting.
But then I remembered in 2014.
You got to make it memorable.
I did make it memorable.
Sorry,
I can't remember the best story I had last year. Anyway, in 2014, every day there was a labor story. And it was good news, like not good news, but it was hard news labor stories that were no more than just fluff. And it was a lot of, I'd say it was fun. It was made training camp. Yeah, I don't know what to write to. I think I'll go talk to Ben Labatt and get his thoughts on what's happening on the labor front. And there's always something going on. So it made for an interesting training camp, and it'll be another interesting training camp.
And then the deal got signed, and I think the Riders were the only team that didn't vote for it. And that was a stink bomb.
Oh, Ricky Foley, Darian Durant. And I know one thing, and I can tell you, it's when they sign the new agreement, it'll be at the most inconvenient time for me as possible because I hate to say it. Jamie and I, Joel Gass and I were all sitting at Bon Tom's having a lovely Louisiana-style dinner, and the tweet came down. Announcement came down. They've reached an agreement. So off we went, half-finished dinners because we had to start writing our stories on the agreement coming down.
Well, that's how you keep the weight off. Just have all these half meals.
I want to throw something. Just to get a little.
You've been wanting to throw something at me for a long time.
Yes. So the CFL draft's coming up, which I know is another event almost as big as the CBA. And I know the Riders have a 6th overall pick, I think, in my mind. I'm going to throw it out there. why don't they take one of those Canadian quarterbacks? Why don't they take Michael O'Connor instead of going for these offensive linemen that they kind of, look to the futures, or they look at or something like that. But here's a guy, O'Connor, he plays for UBC, 6'5", 235, looked great in the Vanier Cup. He's American trained. He understands the Canadian game. If whatever happens, why not take a guy like him and build, here we go, we're going to take a good Canadian quarterback who has everything, all the aspects you want. I don't know how.
You need the Brandon Bridge rule to be enacted,
yeah,
because then there's a real incentive.
But even then, wouldn't it be more exciting to get a quarterback and watch him develop from a young guy than some offensive lineman who's down with the Jets, or like Dakota Shepley who came back? Wouldn't it be more exciting and more interesting? Because I think there's other quarterbacks. So this O'Connor kid looks like the real deal. He may go in the NFL, but because he has his NFL training or his college training with Penn State and stuff. So
yeah, ask the U of R Rams how good Michael O'Connor is.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he can. he can.
He's done it to them.
I know. This is stuff that comes
or
in
the second round. It depends how long. Yeah. I'm not sure how long he's going to last. You never know with a quarterback. It's always a bit of a wild card. But if you look at the Riders, and I'm writing about it in my next award-winning column on the quarterbacking situations.
Thank you for filling today's paper.
Thank you. And
tomorrow's paper.
If you're a Rider fan, can you really feel that comfortable with the ranks of the quarterbacking right now?
No.
Zach Collaros is back, and a lot of the fears that people had last year about him being injury prone were realized. When he played, they were 10-4, but I don't think they were 10-4 on the strength of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Cody Fajardo,
beat him once, so beat him when it mattered.
Yeah,
sort of, kind of
1 yard quarterback sneak.
Yes. Memorable.
Isaac Harker from the Colorado School of Mines.
Which is an interesting school. I didn't even know they had a football team, but I know this guy up here, Chad
Freehoff.
Freehoff, he was up here, sorry.
He was a quarterback way back when.
Schoolhouse. Yeah.
And David Watford is back. So
that's really called mining this system to get players, eh? Sorry.
Don't. I have a cold.
Sorry about that.
So if you're looking at that quarterbacking
and David Watford
equation, like, why not draft a Canadian kid? But I'll be interested to see one of the things I'm watching. I'll be interested in as far as the CBA negotiations is, does the Brandon Bridge rule get enacted? Suddenly, if there's an incentive, a ratio related incentive for a team to play a Canadian quarterback, then it gets interesting. Unless they end up only having to start 5 Canadians, and then it probably doesn't matter because it's just going to be a bunch of 300-pounders, sort of like this podcast.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole bunch of offensive linemen. That's what's going to be if they go to the 5.
I got to call him on sort of using Isaac Harker of the Ore Diggers of the Colorado School of Mines as the impetus for the column. And the Riders, throughout their history, since they've been the Saskatchewan-roughriders, they've never developed a quarterback. They've never taken a quarterback right out of college who's gone directly from college to the Rough Riders without any stops anywhere else, which is what Isaac Harker would be doing. They've never developed that person into a star. Some have become good quarterbacks after they've left Saskatchewan. Mm-hmm. But if Isaac Harker, suppose were to come into Saskatchewan, wow him at training camp, wow him in the preseason, have a great regular season, he would instantly be probably the number one success story that the Rough Riders have ever had, getting a quarterback directly from college. The best one I could find is Kevin Glenn, who joined the Rough Riders in 2001 out of Eastern Illinois. And he spent his first 3 years with the Rough Riders, but didn't become a premier quarterback until he left Saskatchewan. But he's the best quarterback that they've ever recruited directly out of college. After that, it falls off a cliff. Number 2 is Rick Casada.
I saw that name.
Who in 1968 was 9 for 41.
Really? You could do that.
Yeah. 9 for 41. And but he didn't get intercepted.
What was Rocky Butler? Wasn't he a college kid?
Rocky Butler from Hofstra. Arguably he should have been higher on the list. Homer Jordan. You covered He was an afterthought, but Todd Reesing is mentioned. Graham Harrell is mentioned. Tony Rice was 2 for 5 for 40 yards in 1990.
Daryl took the weekend off. Daryl was the beat writer back then. Somebody took a weekend off, and I got to cover the Tony Rice circus. And because he brought him in to recruit him a little bit too. I remember that, thinking, "Oh, we're so excited! A Heisman Trophy winner and all this stuff." And boy, he wasn't much good. He was
his senior year
instantly
at Notre
delayed
Dame.
Rice.
His senior year at Notre Dame, he rushed for 950 yards or thereabouts. He completed 2 touchdown passes as a senior at Notre Dame and was intercepted 9 times. Why on earth? How on earth did they ever think Tony Rice was going to be anything?
I don't know.
Except a running back.
Yeah, but I still remember the hype around him.
It went nuts.
Graham Harrell comes in here, and they bought him and allowed him to go away because it was on the ESPYs for the award for having the most outstanding college year. He did something with the Texas Tech Raiders. Nice kid.
Yeah.
Ended up being a backup with the Green Bay Packers for a million years, I think.
I remember during the Tony Rice situation, Greg Drennan, our sports editor of the day, said to Les Donison, who was on our sports staff at the time, said, try and get a hold of Lou Holtz. So, who was then the head coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So Les picked up the phone, called Notre Dame Athletics, and Lou Holtz was on the phone. That was a nice coup.
Yeah.
Greg Harder talked to Gretzky, I think in 2012. That was a pretty great coup for our sports department.
When I talked to Bobby Orr.
You talked to Bobby Orr.
I
talked to Henry Burris.
There's another name that comes up to me because I remember I was on the desk for quite a few years, and Dave Starman and Bob Hughes was the editor, and he could not spell Dave Starman's name for the life of him. He spell it. You'd read his column and have it spelled 4 different ways, and never the right way. And I'm not saying I make my share of mistakes, but I still remember on the desk we're going, "Come on, Bob, at least look it up once in a while." He had IE, and Dave Starman was no more deserving of all those columns that Bob wrote than he was.
And he was a hot shot in '86. He's also mentioned as a postscript in the column. I remember the preseason game in '86. They brought in Dave Starman, and he threw this pass toward the left sideline, and I swear you could have put a hang time meter on it. That thing was just an arc. So anyway, I'm writing about quarterbacks for the 4,000.
That's probably your time. I mean, I kind of thought you would have. I know we kind of delved in. We saw John Football come and go when I was away, and I kind of, because he's no longer Johnny Football, he's John Football, and it's kind of sad to see him go. I kind of was cheering for a bit. I know I had a big interview with him when I was in Hamilton. He was very cooperative, told his story many times, and I was very impressed with him. And I thought he was sincere, and I wanted him to do well, but.
It would have been great for the league. It would have been good. It would have been good for football.
But good for him. He said he couldn't adapt to the 12th man, and he got ripped by that. The kind of people turned that around.
But that's what happens. That's what happened to Vince Ferragamo in 1981, and that's what happened to John Manziel last year.
Yeah, he just couldn't handle that 12th man, and he couldn't handle the field. And I never once thought he was ripping the CFL when I was reading all that stuff. I just thought when he was
talking about the 12th man, was he talking about the attendance at some of the AF?
Well, what do you think is going to happen with speaking of John Manziel and the Al? What's going to happen with the Als? Like, I read a good point today. The CFL's got to have a Montreal franchise. It's as important to this league as Toronto is. I think if you don't have a Montreal franchise, I don't know where you go for it. That sure kills the expansion to the Maritimes. But
this 1987, the Montreal Alouettes folded on the eve of the regular season, and the league had 8 teams for a long time. So
I guess it can
be done. It's not as much of a linchpin as Toronto is, but
it's important. If Quebec's football and all the things that go on in Quebec, you can't ignore that football mad province. And
they could get by without Montreal. They pretty much have in the last few years anyway.
Yeah, God, they're so bad.
They have been such a non-factor.
And Toronto too.
But to have a team in peril, I don't think it's at that stage. But again, you don't really know because there's not a lot of information being disseminated unless you go to Herb Zurkowski's Twitter account.
It's been a while since we've had a team in peril too like this. Like to be, well, of course, according to Twitter, who knows what's happening behind the scenes, but we've kind of been. Well, Toronto's always.
Thank goodness for benevolent owners.
Yeah,
this league could have teams in peril very quickly if owners decided they had to make money on the investments. Mm-hmm. If Bob Young decided tomorrow this has got to be a moneymaker, there's a crisis in Hamilton.
Yep.
You know, or if you look
even
at
sooner or later, David Braley's going to leave the BC.
You look
Lions.
At the Argo situation. If the ownership group decided they had to make a profit on the Argos, there's problems.
Yeah.
But this league has had some amazing owners, and even some of the goofy ones who have come in.
Brothers.
At least they've preserved these teams. Yeah. They've lost millions of dollars in the process, but at least they've preserved these teams. If it was strictly a matter of this investment has to be profitable, or I'm not going to do it, it might be the Western Interprovincial Football Union again, because a lot of these teams would have fallen.
And I think there's reasons to be excited about Toronto this year. I think they got a good coach in Corey Chamberlain, and I think Jim Pop's in his position where he needs to be GM supplying players. I think Corey will have a better relationship with players than Mark Trestman. I can't say why. I just
unless
sense,
they fumble.
Unless they fumble. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the running back, wasn't it? Yeah. Which running back?
Any running back.
Any running
Hugh
back.
Charles, fumble, goodbye. Anthony Allen, fumble, benched.
Yeah, that was pretty. Yeah, he was. That's funny. I always have a soft spot for Corey because I went 2013. About this time, I was down in Bradenton, Florida for a week, watching football and enjoying it, and then it didn't happen again. But Corey, I still remember that when he invited me in. I wasn't allowed to report. I was just allowed to have it on background to listen to his speech to the team. And that's when he stressed things like family and all these kinds of stuff. And it was a very inspirational speech. And it was eye-opening for me to see what the coach did. And I appreciate that opportunity. And then he lost his mind in 14 to 15. And then we all know how that story ends.
Corey Chamberlain can be a tremendous coach. He's got a Grey Cup ring. He's one of 4 Grey Cup winning coaches in Riders history. Yeah. That doesn't happen. Don Matthews didn't win a Grey Cup as a head coach
Corey
here.
will fit. I think
Cal Murphy didn't win a Grey Cup as a head coach here.
Corey will do
Chamberlain
stuff.
did.
Corey will go out into the community and do things in Toronto. I think he understands his role is to coach, but he also understands you got to go out there and sell stuff. And I think that could be good for Toronto because, boy, you'd like to see them do something. Another 4-14 season is not going to be good for the CFL.
I put a call out on Twitter for some questions. Let's see if we get any. Lorianne asks, have not heard much from our new coach. An update on what he is up to would be nice. I haven't heard an interview with Craig Dickinson since the day he was hired.
There was one on Calgary radio.
Okay.
They did it with Mark Stevens, and it was a long time. You're right. That's a very good point. I can tell him what he's up to. They're putting together the rosters. They're putting together training camp schedules. They're putting together all these things. They're busy.
Question from Brett Butler, formerly of the Atlanta Braves. Riders' backup quarterback situation. Will the offense be any different under Craig Dickinson? John Ryan signing looming. Who are the free agents to keep an eye on leading into training camp? Thank you, Brett. The Riders' quarterback situation, we've discussed it. Will the offense be any different under Craig Dickinson? He's talked about some tweaking or whatever.
It's actually the offense isn't going to be under Craig Dickinson. It'll be Steve McAdoo, and I wonder if he's going to.
Will Dickinson have a?
He's going to have a say. Obviously, I think he can't, but I think maybe he's going to take some of the handcuffs off of McAdoo's offense and give it to the 2nd and 10 hitches, and maybe we can get maybe as I've said this before, and it's hard to believe. When Zach did his press conference after signing, he looked like a different man. He looked like a guy who was just a weight had been off his shoulders. He looked like kind of this Zach Claris I had heard about. Not like this. Zach Claris wasn't a lot of fun to deal with last year, and I think I don't know if he did it on purpose or if he was unhappy, but he just maybe the injuries, maybe everything, but he looked different this year. And I know it's going to be a big change coming in. Yeah.
But it's easy to win a press conference. Can you win a game?
They've got to get a backup quarterback. And I know Cody Fajero, as I said, is beat the Riders in that East final. Well,
he came in as a short yardage quarterback.
And John Ryan, well, nothing's happening.
And that's as of yesterday. Yesterday being Monday when Murray checked on that.
And I kind of want to, and I know this is, people are really getting excited about John Ryan, and I think it's really be cool to be here. I kind of wanted to see fit into a Craig Dickinson special teams unit, and I know, because Josh Bartell has averaged about 40 yards, I think.
40, yeah, just under 41.
But he boots the spots. He wants shorter kicks. He wants more of a controlled stuff.
But that's what John Ryan did exceptionally in Seattle.
Yeah. So
John could have boomed the ball for 49, 50 yards a punt if that had been the game plan in Seattle. But the directional punting was John Ryan's forte in Seattle, and that's one of the reasons he was able to stay there for 10 years.
Well, he was so good. But do the Riders need to go after John Ryan when you have Josh Bartell? You know, I think John's a pretty smart guy. He knows there's an incumbent in here that can handle both, can handle the job. But it'd be nice, it'd be fun. It'd be a great way of him to go.
It's not an area of absolute need, but if you look at the Rough Riders, they were near the bottom in gross yards, and they were near the bottom in net yards. So whatever they were doing really wasn't working that well.
Yeah.
Whether it's philosophical or whether it's Josh Bartell or a bit of both.
Do they need another kicker controversy? We already got Carpena and Lowther.
If John Ryan comes here, that's the end of the kicking derby. Yeah. I wonder, as much of a feel-good story as it would be for John Ryan to come home at age 37 and play, if you're the BC Lions and you've lost Ty Long, why aren't you all over John Ryan?
I wonder if that's the unnamed team that's in this whole.
There's teams with a much greater need. Even you look at Toronto, and I think he could upgrade the punting there, and he went to a mini camp with the Argonauts. Josh Bartell will do fine if Josh Bartell is back. But
even you talk about how quiet. Even the signings are really uneventful. Like Harker and then this DB they signed the other day. I'm going.
There's virtually nothing.
No,
it's
kind
just
of
so
interesting.
quiet. And one of the questions that Brett asked was, who are the free agents to keep an eye on leading into training camp? It really isn't.
Easily. William Powell is going to be a big one. I think that's good. If you're going to have a quarterback that's oft injured, William Powell is going to be a lot of pressure on him to do stuff. Micah Johnson, I'm so looking forward to seeing him in that defensive line.
But by free agents, is he looking at? Is he asking about CFL free agents or just newcomers?
Newcomers, riders, free agents they've signed. That's what
is there a kid out of college or a new signing that really is really wowed people? There's been some talk about Isaac Harker because of his 39 touchdown passes with the Colorado University of Mines last season.
I'm thinking about the free. I'm leaning towards the free agents they signed. Like I said, Powell, like Micah Johnson and.
Manny Arsenault will bear watching.
Yeah, maybe sometime in late October. Maybe that's when the season starts. If there's a big labor thing, we get Manny Arsenault back, he'd be fine. It'd be a good idea to watch. I think Corey Watson's almost as old as me.
Like what have they done to improve the passing game during the offseason? And granted, there's time remaining before camp. Who knows how much time? Given the labor situation.
Next week's going to be busy. I have a sense.
Where's a receiver you look at and say, oh, this guy's going to be good? Where's somebody beneath Zach Collaros that gives you some confidence that maybe if he falters or is injured? But they had Naaman Roosevelt last year.
Yeah.
They lost Jordan Williams-Lambert. They've signed Manny Arsenault, who is questionable to start the season. Where's the sign that the passing game is going to improve? What have they done to improve the passing game? Name one thing that they've done to improve the passing game. I can't either.
That's a good one. William Powell, did I mention William Powell?
Philosophically, maybe they can improve it philosophically, but they've pretty much got the same receiving core, and they've got the same offensive coordinator, and they don't have say what you will about Brandon Bridge, but that would be a better backup quarterback than. He would be a better backup quarterback than what they have now.
So let's say next week they announce Kevin Glenn signing. Is that a step forward, or is it just a lateral move just to keep things? Is it a big step forward for them to sign Kevin Glenn if it happens?
If you've got Zach Collaros as a starting quarterback and you have championship aspirations, I think you have to have somebody who can come in at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
And you don't want to cross your fingers and think, can Cody Fajardo do it? So if you've got Zach Collaros, I think it's almost imperative that you have a veteran behind him.
Yeah.
If you're not in let's develop a quarterback mode, and I don't think they are.
I don't think they are either. Other than my suggestion,
it's Zach
O'Connor.
Better be healthy and he better be tremendous,
but he can't even control
John Ryan or Josh Bartel better be able to punt for 70 yards.
And the unfortunate part is Zach can't control staying healthy because he gets hit. He's had concussion history. Unfortunately, it's going to happen again. It's obvious.
It's a lot. It's a big ask for any quarterback.
Yeah.
18 game regular schedule.
Schedule.
The
defense can be good. I think we can. Can we say the defense is going to be good?
No. I don't think you have the same assurance there. Without Chris Jones, that's a Chris Jones defense. They're going to miss.
Jason Shivers is a Chris Jones disciple.
But he's never been a coordinator before.
Sooner or later, Chris Jones was never an offensive coordinator. One defense.
Chris Jones was a better defensive coordinator they're going to miss him more as a defensive coordinator than they will as a head coach. He was an average head coach. He was a really good defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just say because he's a Chris Jones disciple that he can be Chris Jones? Is it that?
Well, Chris mentioned that he.
Are you minimizing Chris Jones' ability as a defensive coordinator if you're saying that he can be so easily replaced?
You got to take a chance on some guy sooner or later, and I think Shivers is a guy that maybe is going to step up there. I kind of think
Sam McGuavin is gone.
Yeah,
and yes, they've added Micah Johnson, but Willie Jefferson is gone.
Willie Jefferson is a big one.
They've signed AC Leonard, but he was so overwhelming with Ottawa that he was a healthy scratch in the playoffs last year.
I know.
After being named an All-Star.
That's still a weird one. I'm going to have to find out about that one in my training
secondary will be good. I want to see what that defense is like without Chris Jones. Yeah. I'm really intrigued by what kind of factor he was. And maybe Jason Shivers, having worked under Chris Jones, can at least approximate what they had. But that, to me, that's as big a question mark as anything, is can they replace Chris Jones, a defensive coordinator?
Well, we're going to find out. And our continuing meandering through, I don't know if you can ask stories. Tomorrow the Hall of Fame announcement comes out, the class of 2019. John Ryan wouldn't be eligible for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that the accomplished Canadians are ignored if they happen to play in the National Football League.
And like Ruben Mays, like why isn't Ruben Mays in the Canadian Football Hall? Like Ruben Mays should be. I know he was one of the first.
Even guys like Israel Adonje,
Yeah.
have had amazing careers south of the border, but playing football at the highest level disqualifies them from being inducted. How ridiculous is that?
I know you have to have rules on who can get in and who stays out, and I understand that's part of the game, but someone on that committee has got to take a look at this. Guys, we're excluding too many good players. And John Ryan not saying he's going to the Hall of Fame right now, but when he does, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Ruben May should be out here.
Even guys like Jerome Pathon. I mean, they've been productive players in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Yet they'll induct a Canadian college player who didn't even do anything in the CFL. Yet somebody who accomplishes something in the NFL.
Well, you have to recognize that's not fair. You have to recognize college contributions too, because it's Canadian football, and I like how they do that.
I like that, but I think they have to go to the other extreme as well.
A guy like Gord Curry gets in there because really junior football and what he's done, which is really good, but he gets in the Hall of Fame, which is really cool. And I think you have to acknowledge the amateurs and kind of like some of the people that get in there. But
I think if you're going to do that, I think you also have to look at the other end of the spectrum.
Oh yeah, for sure.
John Ryan is the class. If there isn't room for John Ryan, the Canadian Football Hall of Fame eventually.
Yeah. You'd like to see that.
Maybe the John Ryan scenario is the catalyst for change. And this is a guy who even while playing in the United States has paid attention to grassroots football. Look at the things he's done for Regina Minor football. Look at the kicking camps that he's held. My godson went to his kicking camp way back when, and at the end of the kicking camp, there was about 2 or 3 kids who didn't have rides home. So John Ryan, after conducting the kicking camp, gave all the kids a ride home. How cool is that? Yeah. That's John Ryan. He's got to be he should be in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame eventually.
Should be. Yeah, I guess, can you put it as 2 seasons with the Bombers? No, that's not good enough.
The second season that he was there, he averaged 50.6 yards per punt, which is still a league record.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your
and that's it for questions. So I guess that's it for the podcast.
I think we've run out. I think we have any left to talk. We got the NFL draft. The NFL draft is finally here. And I know everyone else has had lives. I haven't had much of a life. I'm so tired of watching mock draft after mock draft for the NFL draft. Just pick the damn guys and get ahead. And then there's the CFL draft, and then we'll move on.
Well, I know you're hoping that the first pick is a guy named Murray.
That'd be true. It's good to be back.
Nice to have you back,
If
Murray.
anybody's out there thinking about having their hip replaced and wondering if you're going to put it off, don't put it off. It's a far better life with the new hip than it was with the old rotten thing.
I just get emails suggesting that I be replaced.
I think you're irreplaceable.
Why not take all of me?
Yeah.
Can't you see?
You're still a pretty hip dude, though. I think we could get you going on that one. But, sorry. Hip jokes.
I need the ending, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
The hip, the tube on hip jokes has been squeezed dry.
Never.
I have to read this, and I always mess it up somehow, so I'll give it a shot.
Sure.
Please rate us on iTunes and leave a review. It helps us grow the podcast. If you'd like to send us a question, you can email Rob at rvanstone@postmedia.com, and we'll read it on the show. No questions last week, but there's always Twitter. So, yep. Mur, it's wonderful to see you again.
And I go on holidays day after tomorrow, so.
yeah, but a good reason.
Yes, my daughter's getting married, if I can say that. My little baby is going to be
two of them are
2 of the 3
are getting married this year.
2 down, 1 will go. November. She's a November bride. So.
And my 20th anniversary is on May 15th.
Is it?
Yes.
Good. My 62nd birthday is May 1st, so I need that day off.
Did I give you the day off?
No, I have the drafts the next day. I don't think so.
Well, just do your advance early and take the day off.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to know this. Why am I boring the audience? Murray, it's a pleasure to be with you again.
Yeah.
My name's Rob, and we're going to do this again next week if you'll have us. Our special guest next week, we anticipate, will be Derek Taylor. So, Murray, thank you.
Do you need me then? He'll fill in all the details on everything.
Yeah, I hope. Anyway, DT will be with us at some point next week, the new voice of the Rough Riders. For Murray, I'm Rob. Thanks to Mark Melnichuk for producing this once again. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.